Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. In my most recent podcast, I was talking about cases in which UFOs show up, apparently extraterrestrial controlled UFOs show up over nuclear missile silos in Russia and the United States and basically activate nuclear missiles and have them preparing for launch and then returning everything back to normal and then taking off. I was talking about that. Now, and I've also in the past, I've talked a number of times about the 1967 Malmstrom incident where a flying saucer, a large flying saucer shows up, hovers over this nuclear base in North Dakota, and actually causes all the nuclear missiles to shut down. Now, one of the main witnesses that's been talking about this over the decades, or actually almost 30 years now, since 1994, is retired Air Force vet Robert Salas, and he's not happy right now with the way things are going. And he published actually this is part one of one of his letters, I guess. I guess this is something that was published on a website run by a different UFO investigator, Jim Lowe, who is a lawyer and also somebody who he's a lifelong experiencer and a professor, and Robert Salas published this little piece, part one of this article about what's going on, what he sees is happening right now with this Arrow and Congress, and he's not happy, and you can understand why. And also, there's a lot of things I got out of this. I'm not gonna read this whole thing that he wrote because it's pretty lengthy. But there are some. I'm going to read some of it, some of the juicier parts, because to me, what I get out of this after reading it, I was like, well, this says a lot. It says a lot about not only the cover-up that the different branches of military are continuing to cover this whole UFO phenomenon up, and they're not really reporting to Arrow like they should be about what they know, especially with regard to an incident that happened 56 years ago now. I mean, this Malmstrom incident happened in 1967, and the Air Force, apparently, based on what Salas is stating here, the Air Force is acting like they didn't have nothing on this. That's impossible. But there could be other reasons for it, and I'm going to get into everything here. But anyway, he was talking about. I mean, you have to check out this whole thing. He talks about his time in government service. He spent 32 years in government service, and he often looked for ways to make government work better. And he says the great majority of people who work in government are motivated by how to perform their jobs best to help the public. Therefore, it is fair and right to start with that premise whenever taking a stand on the efficacy of any government official or agency. However, government generally has exceptional powers to impact our lives, and those powers have been misused. There have been ample examples of mismanagement or outright corruption in our history in the performance of governing. As a result, we the people have a responsibility to remain vigilant. This critique of current government efforts to address the UAP is simply my attempt to pursue that vigilance. Now he goes on and talks about Arrow and Sean Kirkpatrick. He's just listing what Sean Kirkpatrick's duties are, what Arrow's duties are, and he gets into all of that. Again, this is a pretty lengthy little piece that he put together, and there's going to be a part two where he talks more on this stuff. But anyway, you scroll through this, and he talks about, like, he was recently interviewed, as I mentioned this on the show before on a different podcast, where he was actually talking with somebody from Arrow about his experience in 1967, and there were some troubling aspects to come out of this, and we're going to go through some of these aspects anyway. He says here regarding his testimony to Arrow. You have to remember now. First off, he testified to Arrow after that National Defense Authorization Act bill passed, which included whistleblower language. So this makes it legal for him without having to worry about any repercussions or anything. Even though he was talking about this before, but it's now there's no trouble he can get into now for talking about what he knows with with regard to what happened in 1967 when he was at Malmstrom. And he says, on February 15th, he accomplished a personal milestone. I gave a 2-hour interview to the United States government office now designated to research and report on the UAP issue to the Congress and the public. Since 1994, when I went public with my UAP experience, I was finally able to be heard by a United States government agency about my experience and research of the unidentified aerial phenomena. So after he went public with this in 1994, nobody in the government mentioned. He never provided to anybody in the government any of the information that he had, any of the incident. He was never asked about that incident that happened in 1967. Of course, as we know, back in that time, basically everyone was told to shut up and not talk about it, right? But anyway, and he later he writes, he says, my testimony to Arrow, now an official record, spoke specifically of two separate incidents at Malmstrom Air Force Base in March 1967 involving the disabling of strategic nuclear missiles. I also informed them of the importance of an additional very similar incident that occurred at Minot Air Force Base, North Dakota in September 1966, resulting in disabling 10 Minutemen missiles during a UFO encounter. On May 9th, 2023, Arrow received, during an unclassified interview they requested, the testimony of principal witness David Schindel about the Minot incident. These three incidents occurring within the span of 6 months, resulting in the disabling of 30 nuclear weapons during UFO encounters, are now official records and can no longer be denied, ignored, or by Arrow or any other government agency giving serious deliberations of the subject of the UAP incidents at nuclear weapons facilities. Now, I just want to stop there for a second. Of course, as we all know, Sean Kirkpatrick, even though he was aware of these interviews in his of the first interview from Salas, that did not account. Salas's testimony to Arrow, he gave a 2-hour phone call interview to an official from Arrow, but that doesn't constitute credible evidence of extraterrestrials, according to people like Sean Kirkpatrick, the director of Arrow. But anyway, let's continue here. It says, some aspects of my interview with Arrow are concerning. When I specifically asked them if they would be checking details of my presentation with the Air Force, the reply was not directly. They indicated that they were having trouble obtaining information from the Air Force on past events. Many of their inquiries to the Air Force had a standard evasive response of, everything the Air Force has to say is a matter of record. Now, let's just stop there. So basically, Arrow apparently is contacting the Air Force on some of these historical incidents, like the Malmstrom incident, and the Air Force is saying everything that we have on that, it's already a matter of public record. Well, guess what? There's nothing. Anyway, continue. We'll get into all that in a second. We'll just finish this up here. It said Arrow indicated they would leave it up to the Congress to sort out the validity of any official reports such as my presentation. In my opinion, this approach is totally insufficient. In fact, I am not aware of any record of United States Air Force comments or any resolution as to the cause of any of the three incidents involving the disabling of nuclear weapons. In each of the incidents, there were multiple witnesses and substantial documentation to verify the facts. Many of the principal witnesses are still living. Resolution of these facts and acknowledgement through a summary statement by the principal cognizant government agencies, such as the United States Air Force, should be required to complete the historical and public record and demonstrate government transparency. Now, apparently, he's going to do a part 2 where he's going to talk about what happened at that Senate Armed Services Subcommittee from April 19th, where Sean Kirkpatrick was testifying. And I'm looking forward to see what he has to say about that. But I'm just looking at this, and what does this tell you? What does this tell you? This tells you that they're not playing ball. The Air Force is not playing ball, right? They don't have anything. Anything that we have on this incident is already on the public record. So I just don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. There's either two things are happening here, okay? One of the things is that the Air Force is lying, and they have records on this, and they're not sharing them, right? They're just failing to share them, and they're just outright not going to share them, even for incidents that happened 56 years ago. They're not going to share information that they have with regard to a UFO that showed up over nuclear missile sites and shut down missiles. They're not going to share any information they have about that. To me, right now, this is just me, but any of these stories where you hear about a UFO hovering over nuclear missile sites and either activating nuclear missiles or shutting them down, right? To me, that's the second biggest story of all time. The first biggest story of all time is the reality that there's extraterrestrials on this earth, that there's a presence of extraterrestrials on this earth. That's the number one story. The second biggest story of all time is the fact that these aliens are shutting down nuclear missiles or activating them. They have the ability to do that, which I just talked about. I'm not going to get into all of that again, right? But what I'm getting into here is the fact that the Air Force is not playing ball. They're not. When Arrow contacts them, the Air Force is saying, "Oh, we don't have any records on anything that we have on that's already part of public record." But like Salas points out, well, there is nothing. They don't comment on these things. They never have. So you're going to tell me that there's no records anywhere that the military, that the Pentagon has, right? And there's a number of witnesses to these incidents where actual UFOs show up and are able to do things like this, and there's no records. Well, what does that tell you? It tells you there's either two things are happening. Either the Air Force has the records and they're just not playing ball. I don't know. I don't know if that's it, though. I think to me, this proves in a way. This actually does. It actually proves the existence of the secret control group, because obviously there has to be somebody within the Pentagon that is sitting on this, that is looking at this, that has looked at it and is aware of it and understands that it happened. There has to be records somewhere, right? There has to be. And obviously, what's going on here is that they're not playing ball. And again, I don't know what you have to do what Congress has to do. Congress is going to have to get extremely, extremely tough. I mean, extremely tough. Not just having whistleblowers coming in, but having the top brass from the Air Force coming in and testifying and getting up and testifying and telling the senators and Congress, hey, asked, these people need to be asked, the top brass in the Air Force need to be asked, well, you're saying you have no records of this, you have all these witnesses, or what did you do with this information? Right, where's it going to? Right? If something like this happened right now, is there a certain place you would be sending it to? That's what needs to happen here. Right, because of course Salas is on the lower rung of the ladder when it comes to something like this. He's talking about this. He's telling exactly what happened, along with other witnesses, or telling Arrow what happened. But Arrow can't get anything from the Air Force because the Air Force says everything we have on this is already on the record. It's on the public record. Well, that means there's nothing then. You have nothing on it. That means you've never looked into this. I tried to investigate where these UFOs came from that were hovering over nuclear missile sites, right? No nuclear missile bases and shutting off or turning on nuclear weapons. You've never looked into this. You just forgot about it and moved on. You didn't not even keep a little folder on it. They're lying, right? Because guess what? This stuff is getting sent someplace else. This, to me, right, this proves again. I mean, we all know, right, that there has to be a secret control group. This proves again, when these things happen, something else kicks in and takes over the situation. There's another organization that we're not aware of. Nobody knows. We don't know what the name of it is, right? It might have been called Majestic 12 at one time, but there's something, who knows if it's still called that, but there's something in place, and has been in place for a long time, that serves as a repository for all information and data that comes with situations like this when they happen. Because there's no way that the United States government has no idea, no record about incidents involving UFOs showing up over nuclear weapons sites and deactivating or activating nuclear weapons. There's just no way that they just, there's nothing we could. Well, you know what? The truth of the matter is this: there probably is nothing they can do about it. Maybe that's why they don't want to talk about it. But anyway, it's another. This shows you again, right? The depth of the cover-up. I mean, they're being basically forced into by continuing to do this. I'm so glad that Robert Salas brought this to our attention, to the attention of the public, about what happened here. That Arrow told him, during his interview with Arrow told him, hey, we can't really get any verification for what you're telling us because the Air Force says everything they have is already a matter of record. I'm so glad that he's doing that. Right, we need more people like this, because then we can start calling in the top brass, right? The Air Force. I talked about this just recently. We need to have some names. If somebody out there has some names of the potential people who are running the show, who are pulling the strings at the core of this secret control group. That's who needs to be getting forced before Congress. Because they're sitting on this information, they're sitting on this unbelievable story, the biggest story of all time. Actually, the second biggest. The first biggest, of course, all of it, right? That's the biggest story of all time. Again, like I said, I think that the idea that that there's an extraterrestrial presence here, that's A number one. And then A number two is the fact that they're shutting down nuclear missile sites, silos every once in a while. Well, what have they learned about this over 56 years? Do they know anything more than they did now than that they did then? Then, I think it'd be good for the American people who are paying all the taxes and stuff over all these decades for all these things, right? The people who are that these people are serving should have, they should have a right to know, right? But then again, you see it now. To me, this proves the existence of this control group, because this is what Salas is telling you. He was told, he told Arrow, hey, this is what happened, and Arrow's saying, well, there's nothing we can do about it. The Air Force is basically telling us we have everything that they have. That's not true. It can't be. It can't be, not for something as big as that. That means all the data that the Air Force has with regard to those events when UFOs shut down or activate nuclear weapons, that means nuclear missiles, right? That means that they're getting sent somewhere else. And that really, really pisses me off. That pisses me off that they're just continuing to lie like this, right? And it's spitting in your face, right? Spitting in the face of the public, the people that have been footing the bill all these decades. They act like we're all a bunch of dummies and we could never figure all this out, even though many of us have known for years what's going on, and we understand that there's a cover-up and there's a secret control group. It's just so obvious. I mean, it's becoming more obvious by the minute. And I'm very grateful to someone like Robert Salas for providing that little commentary on Jim Lowe's website. And of course, I'll leave the link for it so you can check it out for yourself. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back. Okay, we are back. Got to talk a little bit more about the government and. I'm going to bring this talk about what NASA is planning to do, but I can't trust any of these government offices. I just can't. I'm sorry. Now, NASA, of course, according to a press release from NASA, of course, they have their own investigative UFO investigation team now. They're trying to come up with different ways of evaluating data of unidentified aerial anomalous phenomena, and they're going to have a public hearing at 10:30 on May 31st, 10:30 a.m. on May 31st. Of course, I'll watch it and I'll comment on it on my channel, but I have no faith in NASA or the Air Force or the Navy or anybody when it comes to talking about UFOs. I just think they're just completely going to buffalo us. I know I was enthusiastic in the past when NASA announced that they're going to have their own little research into UFOs, but I'm sorry, I don't trust them. I just don't. I don't trust them. I think it's all they're what behind the scenes is, they're being told what they can and what they cannot do, and if they ever came across any proof of extraterrestrials, right, then they'll never share that with us. They'll go right to the secret control group. So I don't trust any of it. I don't trust them at all, and I think this is junk. I think, like I said before, I believe that the only way we're going to get to the bottom of it is to come up with the absolute end-all proof is through a private scientific investigation or something to that effect, or the aliens basically just showing themselves. I just don't trust that the government's ever going to provide anything with us right now. After just going over what happened there with Robert Salas and his interview with Arrow, I mean, and being told, Arrow telling him that, hey, we've contacted the Air Force and they're not playing ball. I mean, to hear that kind of stuff, like, how could you trust any of these branches when it comes to UFOs? You can't, like I've always say this, when it comes to the UFO subject, you can't trust anybody in any of these government branches. They're never going to tell you the truth. They think you're a bunch of idiots, and they don't care. And actually, even if they don't think you're an idiot, right, they don't care. They're just spitting right in your face. Everybody should be wild angry over this. I am. I'm crazy mad about it. But there's nothing we can do about it because the powers that be, they have power. We gave them powers, and it's unlimited powers. It's almost like, Emperor Palpatine. He's like, unlimited power. That's what it seems like. But anyway, here, I'll just read this press release and go through it. Here it says, NASA is holding a public hearing at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, Wednesday, May 31st, of its independent study team on categorizing and evaluating data of UAP. The agency also will host a media teleconference at the conclusion of the meeting. The full meeting will air on NASA television, the NASA app, and the agency's website through 2:30 p.m. NASA defines UAP as observations of events in the sky that cannot be identified as aircraft or known natural phenomena from a scientific perspective. The focus of this public meeting is to hold final deliberations before the agency's independent study team publishes a report this summer. Again, when they report, whatever the report that's going to come out from NASA, right, there's not going to be anything there of real interest. I mean, maybe a little tiny crumb of possible something, but it won't mean anything. They'll never come out and tell us the truth. They can't, because the secret control group is here behind the scenes. They're in charge. They're running this whole country. Anyway. And it says here, outlining how to evaluate and study UAP by using data, technology, and the tools of science is a NASA priority. It is not a review of assessment of previous unidentifiable observations. The report will inform NASA on what possible data could be collected in the future to shed light on the nature and origin of UAP. And they had a public comment on just this past Friday. They were accepting questions from the public on this. I have no faith in this. I mean, we'll see what happens. I hope I'm wrong. I don't want to be wrong, but I think I think I'm going to be right about this. We're not going to get anything out of this. NASA's not going to really do anything, right? They're never going to tell us the truth. I mean, no other government agency ever tells the truth about this stuff. I mean, why should we expect NASA? This is just this is a dog and pony show. It's like they treat us like dogs, or like a shiny object. Hey, we're studying here. We're studying here. You dumb. See. Go get it. Right? That's what they treat us, like dumb dogs. That's basically. I feel like that's how they view the public. Hey, we'll do this one. We'll act like we're studying it, right? We won't give them anything ever, right? We'll go through the motions of it, and then they'll never learn anything, right? Nothing ever good will come out of it. Again, it's like, go ahead, go get it. That's what it is. I mean, that's what I see anyway. I don't see any government agency from the United States ever come telling the truth. I mean, you see, again, based on what I just was talking about earlier, why would they? How could they? I mean, there's a secret control group is in charge. Congress, again, like I talk about, it needs to be more than just whistleblowers at this point. You need to start getting whistleblowers to give names of who's running the show, who's one's pulling the strings behind the scenes. That's where people should be focused on. Again, Arrow, like I've talked about a number of times, Arrow is only a front. It's all it is a front. It's not going to. You're never really going to get anywhere with it, actually, the way things are set up. I mean, they don't even have they're not getting full access to materials, for one thing. That's one thing, as we recently learned. They're not allowed to get up to Title 50, whatever that means. Instead, they're only allowed to get Title 10 tier access. I mean, of course, there's different levels of access, and they're not getting the most classified stuff. So that's one thing. And then I could assure you that even if in top 50, in the most top secret classified stuff, that stuff won't even be in the vaults of the Air Force or the Navy or anybody, right? That's going to be in the possession of the secret control group. The really good stuff is not going to be. You're not going to find it in any of these groups. I mean, NASA, again, this is just to placate the public interest, to make it look like something's going on behind the scenes. I just don't believe it. I think this is just to jerk us around. That's all it is. Will give us a snack. If we're all good boys, they'll give us a snack. Here you go, boy. Here you go. Go get it. That's how they're treating you like a bunch of. Getting treated like a bunch of dogs. When you read about when I just read about what I was talking about earlier with this with the Bob Salas stuff. Right? When you see something like that and you see this, well, what do you think is going to happen? You think NASA's going to provide something? Do you think they're ever going to help with this situation? No, this is just nonsense to placate the public. It's very upsetting. But anyway, there's one more thing I want to talk about. somebody who I've talked about before, a guest on my show, and I've been a guest on his show a number of times, is Shannon Scott of Jacksonville, Florida. He's not doing well right now. He runs the YouTube channel Military Witnesses to UAP with Missouri resident Rob Heatherly. They're both good friends, and they have this channel where they talk about UFOs all the time. They're just like us. They're just like, they just want to have the end to cover up. They want more information. And right now, Shannon has, of course, he's had some issues. He's had issues for a long time now. He's had respiratory problems for a long time now, and right now he's in the hospital, and he's on a ventilator, and he's fighting. He's trying to get better. So I just want to let anyone know. I'm going to leave a link to his Twitter feed if anybody wants to shoot him a message to try to make him feel better. Please do, and keep him in your thoughts and your prayers, because he's a really good guy, and he's just like us. He's somebody that has been waiting a long time for the truth to come out, and right now he's going through a tough time, and so I would hope that everyone could send him a message if you have a chance, and wish him well, and also keep him in your thoughts and in your prayers. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. Until next time.